Perfect. Great. Thank you so much for joining us today at this platform. This month's theme is April Tech Month, which is part of the workforce development strategies I'm working on and collaborating with the CareerForce teams and consultants on hiring immigrants, refugees, and people of color. My name is Anisa Haji Momin. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Immigrant and Refugee Affairs at Department of Employment and Economic Development, that stands for DEED. This is a forum that's held first Tuesday of the month, 3 to 4:30. And, today is also exciting time for us because it's the first time our forum is going on live feed throughout these different social media platforms. So I'm grateful to our guest speakers, including Deputy Commissioner of Workforce Development Division, Hamza Warfa, Neela Molgard, Executive Director for DEED's Launch Minnesota, Patricia Fenrick from DHS's Refugee and Resettlement Office, Justin Hubbard from Integris, and Lacey Glonga from Human Resource Diversity and Inclusion Consultant at Excel, who will also have James Houston that will be co-presented with her. And I was going to say, just mute yourself, you're not speaking, but because we're on live, Eric will be helping with us, as well as Darren, who's our social media platform manager, that will be kind of helping with the notes and blog that we'll be presenting later on our website. And with that, if you have a question or questions, please post it on the chat box. Once every guest speaker is done with, then we can address. And also I'll put my contact information. So if you have follow-up information or questions or any other additional resources that you're interested in, just shoot me an email and I'll respond to you. And with that, I'd like to welcome Deputy Commissioner Hamza Warfa to kick us off.
Sure. Thanks, Anisa. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Excited to be here. It's a beautiful day and beautiful time, but also just want to acknowledge, the moment we are in with the trial going on and the impact it has on all of us. And so just want to start with an acknowledgement of both, the profound, trauma and impact that the trial and the relieved experiences it has for a lot of us, including, and particularly those of us who are coming from the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. So grateful that you made time to join us today. I am mostly wanted to do a quick introduction. My colleagues will be presenting. We'll speak about, what we're doing on, in Tech Month, specifically from a state standpoint, the effort that has been going on led by our team here. But I thought I'll just share a little bit of personal experience and why I'm excited about technology personally. And I say technology not only as technology as an operational tool, but the technology as a strategic enabler to really move and build a better world. And for me, that meant in 2015, I co-founded a blockchain technology company that is now operating in 42 countries. And what we do in the technology is basically provide a digital identity for women farmers, refugees, people who are disconnected from our global economy. And so by using technology to build a digital transaction-based identity, it's allowing millions of people to have access to the global economy. And so I'm personally excited about this, and as a personal outside of my DEED hat, but also in my professional hat here with the agency, we recognize that, we have a significant talent gap when it comes to technology, and our employers, I've had a lot of employer roundtables over the last couple of weeks, and what I hear consistently is, employers looking for talent. We know that, BIPOC, community members are disproportionately underrepresented in the tech industry. And so having a dedicated effort is critical. And this is why last month we released RFP, request for proposal, to pilot a new initiative that will try to close the gap for BIPOC tech entrepreneurs and tech talent for our state. And so the goal is, to explore what can the state do to build and explore and experiment an intentional, dedicated efforts of what kind of a program or infrastructure does our state need. I know a lot of organizations are involved, so building an ecosystem for the broader state is important, but also equally looking at where gaps exist and ensuring that resources are aligned with where opportunities needs are, I think is very important. So super excited about, this is one of many activities you will see over the coming weeks and throughout the month. And so with that, I will turn over to my colleagues who will share a lot of specifics on what we're doing around tech. Anissa, I'll turn over to you first.
Thank you so much, Deputy Commissioner Warfa. Of course, we're going to move on to Patricia Fenrick, joining us from the Refugee Resettlement Office at DHS. She will be presenting to us the different immigration documents, because we have a lot of different documents for our community members that they possess, and it's important for our employers and the private sector to know about and what options are available and how to identify these documents. So go ahead, Patricia. It's all yours.
Great. And you can see the slides all right?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for having me. As the Assistant Commissioner said, my name is Patricia Fenrick, and I work for the Resettlement Programs Office. I work in Refugee Workforce Development and in Outreach and Communication. And the Resettlement Programs Office at the Department of Human Services is a federally funded office that works primarily with people of humanitarian concern, like people with refugee status and people who have been granted asylum, and a few other categories of immigrants, to help them build a strong foundation so that they can become part of our workforce, become new business owners and future leaders for a stronger Minnesota for all of us. Specifically, we fund a statewide resettlement network of services that is divided into 4 regions that provide support for refugees and immigrants in these areas that you see on the picture. So family assisters that help with immediate needs, youth and adult vocational coaches, employment support, immigration services, and community orientation for newcomers. We also provide outreach and education about our immigrant neighbors and workforce to employers, workforce centers, civic groups across the state of Minnesota. Our office funds a statewide helpline also for refugees and immigrants to get help in their own language. This is a great resource for employers to share with their employees. It is staffed Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. People can leave messages in different languages, and it will be returned the next business day. We have posters in 14 different languages that are available upon request, and I'm happy to provide the electronic version of any of those. And the navigators who answer the phones speak 14 different languages, and then we also have access to Language Line. Okay, well, I've been asked to speak briefly today on workforce documents and our immigrant labor force, and this is a huge topic. And work documentation is very specific to each type of immigration status. So I wanted to focus on a few immigration categories of people who are already in Minnesota, people who are already authorized to work and a ready and willing labor force here. So I'll start with some brief definitions. Immigrants come to this country in lots of ways, for work, for education, to join family, to escape persecution. Some come willingly and some because they have no choice. And in our national dialogue about immigrants, we have tended to use different statuses interchangeably, as if immigrants were all the same. So refugee status, asylum status, undocumented, temporary protected status, diversity lottery, all these refer to very different groups of people with different distinct immigration statuses. And it's important to understand these distinctions and the work authorization that each has. So broadly, an immigrant is simply a person born in another country who has come to the U.S. with the intention to stay, who was not born to U.S. parents. Some people granted asylum or with refugee status, for example, are immigrants. but not all immigrants are refugees. So refugee status and asylum are a small subset of a group of immigrants who are people of humanitarian concern. Asylum and refugee status are distinct because the status is only given to people who meet a specific definition and have gone through a regulated process. For immigrants of humanitarian concern, their work authorization is specifically tied to their status. About 8.5% of Minnesota's population are foreign-born immigrants. So they were born in a country outside of the US and immigrated here. And yet immigrants make up almost 10.5% of our labor force in Minnesota because a larger percentage of immigrants who come to Minnesota are of working age. Immigration status can change, so people who come to this country with one status can become US citizens if their status makes them eligible. And currently there are about 52% of Minnesota foreign-born population that are citizens. This context is important because there are many different kinds of immigrant categories within US immigration law. Each has their own eligibility for work authorization. So some of our foreign-born population have statuses based on employment. So these can be temporary work visas, and generally for non-immigrant temporary work visas, employers are required to file a petition on behalf of the worker. So this is like H-1B, TN, people under the North American Free Trade Agreement from Mexico and Canada, and seasonal agricultural workers, H-2As, and other highly specialized workers. Then there are people who are here on permanent employment visas, and about 140,000 of these immigrant work visas are available each year for people based on job skills. There are 5 employment-based immigrant visa preference categories. And then there are statuses that are not employment-based, but that also include work authorization. And this can include family-sponsored visas and groups of humanitarian concern, which includes refugees and immigrants. These people have permission to live and work in the US on a permanent basis. So immigrants are important to Minnesota's economy. They are earners, taxpayers, and consumers. The household refugees and immigrants in Minnesota have a combined household income of $17.5 billion. They contributed in 2019 $2 billion in state and local taxes and $2.5 billion in federal tax revenue. They also have a spending power about almost $12.5 billion in Minnesota. Secondly, refugees and immigrants have a positive impact on labor and job creation. So research has demonstrated that the presence of new immigrant workers and consumers in an area spurs the expansion of businesses by buying goods and services from current businesses, and it creates jobs by developing businesses to meet new global needs, and all of these sustain US jobs. Immigrants and native-born workers are usually not competing in the same job markets because they tend to have different levels of education, work in different occupations, specialize in different tasks, and live in different places. And then there needs to be other documentation re-verified. For asylees, because it's a lessee document, that I-94 does not expire and so does not need to be re-verified. Again, work authorization forms are very specific to status. So another document that can be used on the I-9 is the employment authorization document. Most refugees and asylees will eventually have what we call an EAD, employment authorization document, although the processing time can be lengthy. But they don't need that EAD card in hand to seek or start work because, again, the worker gets to choose their documents for the I-9. So if the EAD has not arrived yet, they can show other List B and C approved documentation. And a note about refugees and asylees, I've kind of mentioned this, but their work authorization does not expire. So even though their employment authorization document expires, it's the document that's expiring and not the work authorization for these two categories. So you can see in the little red box on these examples of new EAD, the new and the old EAD card, the category. And that category number would tell you whether someone had a refugee or asylee status. And if that is true, then it's not the expiration date isn't referring to work authorization, it's referring to the document. In addition, refugees and asylees can work even if they've not received their Social Security number or cards. So if you're an employer that uses E-Verify, these employees should only be run through E-Verify after they've received their Social Security numbers. And we have guidance from the I-9 employer manual that details how you do this with an employer resource I will share at the end. But just because they don't have a Social Security number right away does not mean that they cannot be hired. So for refugees and people granted asylum, here's another example. On the I-9, question number 4 in section 1 is asking about when work authorization ends, not when the document expires. So if someone has refugee status or has been granted asylum, their answer to number 4 is NA, because it's not applicable, because their work authorization never expires. I mentioned that people's immigration status can change. So refugees and asylees and others can apply for citizenship after a length of time. And after 1 year, most people apply for a green card. And so these are just examples of the new version of the green card up on the screen here and the old version, but they're both still valid. And there is no signature that's required on that green card. Okay. So our office, the Department of Human Services Resettlement Office, wants to support employers well. We offer some basic training about refugees, on working across cultures, and best practices for businesses who have a multicultural workforce. This brochure, which we have electronically, provides support information for employers, answers some questions that we commonly hear in Minnesota from employers about hiring and documentation for employment authorization. This brochure includes resources from the Department of Justice and the M274 United States Citizenship and Immigration Services Handbook for Employers, which is a great guide. I'm sure employers are familiar with it, but it also has examples of all the documentations that are possible. So I want to point you to our website if you would like more resources or would like a presentation for another audience. Obviously, this topic, there's a lot more depth you can go into this topic. And I also want to offer this resource. The Immigrant and Employee Rights section of the Department of Justice has a great hotline that you can call if you've got questions on documentation for any type of immigrant status who are authorized to work. There's a hotline for the employer and a hotline for the worker. And even you usually can get a lawyer right away. If not, they call you right back. They're very responsive. And I'll just close with a quick shout out to the month of June. Our office really celebrates refugees and immigrants, refugees and people who've had a refugee background in the state of Minnesota. They are so important to our Minnesota workforce, our culture, our neighborhoods, so many sectors in our state. And so we in June, which we celebrate Refugee Recognition Month, we really try to highlight stories of our neighbors and friends and coworkers who are just doing great work, who have come from this background of fleeing persecution, but are now really making Minnesota their home and making it better for all of us. And so I would just encourage you, if you know anyone who has had a refugee or asylum, has been granted asylum, if that's part of their story and they are doing good work, I encourage you to nominate them. Our nominations will be taken to the end of April 13th. And so I will close now, and I don't know if we're taking questions now or at the end, but that is it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Anybody who has questions for Patricia, please post it on the chat box. And we'll give a couple minutes to see if anybody has questions. That was a great presentation. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.
I guess we can wait for a few more seconds if it was information and educational presentation. And of course, anybody that's interested in, especially community leaders and nonprofit organization leaders, or even the private sector business owners, if you're interested in, you can definitely reach out to Patricia too to see if you can get either free training or just information session.
And I'll put my email in the chat if anyone needs to contact me. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And it looks like Mar said it would be great to have the presentation. So Mar, definitely connect with Patricia to follow up on that. And Patricia, if there's like a one-pager or a couple, cheat sheets for people to reference on, if you can share, I'll definitely be able to include that into the blog. So now, thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to Neela Molgard, our Executive Director for Launch Minnesota, a DEED, to talk about tech startups and resources available at her program. Neela?
Hello, thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit about Launch Minnesota. I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint here, and hopefully, can you see that?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Well, I'm just going to give an overview and then look forward to some questions and to take a deeper dive that way. Launch Minnesota is working to create an environment to support entrepreneurs and nurture tech startups with a goal of fostering a statewide innovation ecosystem. And this model really represents that holistic approach of Launch Minnesota. Our startups, our entrepreneurs, the innovators are at our core. That's the focus. But we need all of these really critical sectors all working together to build that strong and vibrant ecosystem. So we have been very purposeful in pulling together private sector, higher ed, entrepreneurial support orgs, co-working spaces, our investor community, and now the state of Minnesota is there too, representing the government. And Launch Minnesota is really serving as the front door, a central touch point that is bringing these sectors together to start, support, and scale new businesses and technologies. We are focused on 3 key goals: capital, culture, and talent. And I'm just going to take a little bit of time and walk through each of these goals with you of what that looks like. First, we want to provide access to capital. That is through innovation grants, that's through our angel tax credit, that's through working with our private sector. I'm proud to say that we've fully allocated in a year and a half, $3.2 million in innovation grants to over 100 startups. We fully allocated our second year funding with applications from February. So early, that funding was supposed to last until June. Obviously, a high demand for this type of funding. And that was only 30% of the dollars requested from our startup community. I'm also proud to share that 59% of our grantees are from targeted populations. So that for us is targeted populations are women, veterans, greater Minnesota founders, and BIPOC. Minnesota also had a record year with venture capital investments, almost over $1.8 billion, and we will continue to incentivize that private investment through the angel tax credit and others. And the angel tax credit, for those of you that are listening, there is half of it, 5 million out of the 10 million that are there reserved for targeted populations. And we want to make sure that that's used up before October, before that goes back into the general fund. Our second goal is really creating a warm, welcoming, collaborative culture. We know cities and towns and states and countries that are creating this warm environment are outpacing those that don't. And so what we did first was created a collaborative statewide network. It's first of its kind hub and spoke model, bringing together these 6 regions, 8 hubs, and over 80 program partners. We had $450,000 for this effort, and the dollars were to help these individual entrepreneurs start their business and help scale their business. And instead of just granting those dollars to various organizations, we were really purposeful and we encouraged regions to work together, to look outside of their particular organization, look outside of their city, and really leverage the strength of those organizations across their region. These networks now have come together. We are meeting on a regular cadence. They're meeting on a regular cadence. They're leveraging programming, they're leveraging marketing efforts and funding. They're customizing local offerings and their strengths, but yet then we're working together to pull on statewide best practices. As you can see on this slide, a lot of the regions have now branded. So say, for instance, in Southeast Minnesota, it's called the E1 Collaborative. That is bringing together almost 20 different organizations all working together to support our entrepreneurial ecosystem. In the Twin Cities, the 2 hubs are Forge North and Nita. And then you can see that from the slide, the other regions and how they've decided to brand those regions. So tremendous growth, considering that happened just within the last year, and we've been all virtual. The small business, the SBA, the U.S. Small Business Administration, has identified that a connected and a coordinated ecosystem is beneficial to entrepreneurship. And they hosted a competition. So Launch Minnesota, we applied to this competition on behalf of our partners, all of these partners that you see on the slide. And as a result, Minnesota received the SBA Super Connector Award this January, along with 4 other initiatives across the nation. So felt really good that the efforts in this hub and spoke model were validated and noticed at the national level. Our last goal is really developing that entrepreneurial talent and expertise. And what research shows best is that the biggest tool we can do is provide education. We have trained over 600 individuals, startups, entrepreneurs in the Lean Startup model through various partners across the state. 111 received a specific certification through the schools. We've also worked and forged some partnerships with the University of Minnesota that have now created opportunities for those entrepreneurs outside of the university system. So they don't have to be a faculty member or a student of the University of Minnesota. So that is through the Lean Startup model, that's through the new Discovery Launchpad MN. And we've also been very purposeful about creating strong pipelines and on-ramps, really connecting entrepreneurs to the resources, talent, and capital that they need to be successful. That's what, when we hear and we talk to our startups all over the state, that is really what they're asking for, is to help that navigation, right, and provide those on-ramps so they can get the resources they need efficiently, so they can scale their business and launch their business faster. We're also launching a Minnesota Expert Exchange. We want to level the playing field, and we know that there are people in Minnesota that want to share their talent to help these young businesses, and so more to come on that. So just in summary of kind of where the activities of Launch Minnesota has been over this last year and a half is 92% of our grantees that we've surveyed so far confirmed that our work, our grants, our programming, our partners across the state have helped them move their startup and technologies forward. And these startups are the engines of our future jobs and economic growth. We've also leveled the playing field with increased access, opportunity, and funding to founders who are underrepresented. And we've amplified Minnesota, increasing awareness across these regions, the state, and nationally. So it has really been so fun to serve our entrepreneurs in this capacity, and would welcome any questions that anyone has.
Thank you, Neela, so much. That was really very informative, and I hope that some of the community members and leaders that are not aware of our programs can disseminate the information, or even refer to people that they know that could really take advantage of. Farhia says, thank you, Neela. My question is, what TTA are you providing for PIPOC?
Technical assistance.
Is that technical training assistance, Farhia?
So if that is the question, all of our educational opportunities through the university, through ILT Studios, through our hub partners, all are open to everyone. It's online, so it's very accessible. There is no cost. And many of our partners out of the 80 that are in these regional networks are purposefully reaching out to the BIPOC population and BIPOC founders to make sure that they're engaged and aware of these resources. I should call that to your attention, though, if you go to launchminnesota.org, that is the website, launchminnesota.org, under community, you can see all of the regional partners, and then, you know, University of Minnesota is our statewide partner. But for those that are working in various regions, please look at who's already doing some of this great work, and we can make some alignment there.
Thank you so much. Here's the link Neela talked about, and you can go ahead and take a look at it for more information. Any other questions? Looks like we're ahead of the schedule. Thank you so much, Neela.
Okay.
Looks like Non had raised her hand. Eric, can you unmute Non so she can ask her question?
I also want to share that there's other resources besides the education and technical assistance that our network is providing. So I'm happy to connect and share more.
And it looks like Farhia, it's asking how can we access that technical assistance? Neela, if I remember, you said that it's online, correct?
Under our website, the same website, launchminnesota.org, if you go to resources and lean startup, the University of Minnesota course starts again in June. And there will be some other regional programming that's available that we'll be putting on our website shortly. If you also apply or sign up for our newsletter, the Launch Minnesota newsletter, by going to our website, we will make sure that you're updated and have.
Feel free to email me too. I don't mind connecting you to Neela or any other person that you're interested in connecting with. There are a lot of resources out there with Indeed and our state system, and definitely we would love you to be part of it and be aware of it and share that information. Farhia said that the partners chosen aren't PIPOC represented. Could you say more about that, Neela?
Well, many of them, you know, diversity inclusion is forefront in most of the organizations that I've talked to, and so I would say that is a priority and a top goal for most of the organizations we work with. I know that's a priority for MEDA. I know that's a priority for Forge North is one of their top goals. For the Southeast, the Collider has specific, the Collider Foundation has specific BIPOC founders, navigators currently, you know, and then I could keep going on. So everyone is very purposeful about the need to provide services and resources to those that have been typically underrepresented.
Great, thank you so much.
And we also prioritize our innovation grants for those that are in targeted populations.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And Farhia, if you want more information, definitely reach out to Neela, check out the website, and please share the information too. And, you know, we'll go from there. Of course, I'm sure people will have different questions and different comments, but the main point is to have the resources available to PIPOC communities and ways to help them and support them to take advantage of the resources. Thank you so much, Neela. So
thank you.
We will move on to Justin Hubbard from Integris that will be speaking, discussing on tech jobs.
Hello.
Welcome, Justin. Great, you're here.
I am. Let me switch one thing quickly. Make sure I can be heard. All right, can you still hear me? Good.
Yes.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here. As Anissa said, my name is Justin Hubbard, and I am the HR business partner for Integris, which is a tech-based company in Chaska, Minnesota, but we have a few other locations. So let me I have a brief presentation that I'm going to use. Get that started for us here. Okay. All right. And Anissa, can you see the slide? Excellent.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm going to just give a brief summary. So I previously worked at Cargill, which is a global food manufacturing company. I actually supported our Monticello and Big Lake food production facilities, and unfortunately was impacted by COVID-19. There were some team restructurings, and my position was eliminated. But I only share that because I've been with Integris since January of this year, so I'm still new and learning, and I know just enough to be dangerous. Made a connection with Anissa when we were exploring some of our accommodation spaces for our employees. And again, really excited to be here. In my role, I serve as the main point of contact for the Chaska, Minnesota office. We have another facility in Bloomington where I have a peer to me that sits over there. And I also serve as kind of the external face of Integris when it comes to outreach, recruiting, or fielding questions from candidates if it's before the recruiting process. So I'm going to start by giving a brief history or explanation of who Integris is, what jobs we're looking for and want to make sure are advertised to any qualified individuals out there. And then definitely I'm available for questions, or if there's specific job related questions, I can try my best to answer, but I may need to do a little bit of follow up. So very high level, Integris is a global semiconductor manufacturing company. It's a company that's grown out of acquisitions. And so founded back in 1966, today we actually have close to 5,100 employees. Our headquarters is in Massachusetts, and you can see that we have quite a bit of revenue, and we're really a intellectual property company. So a lot of patents and a lot of our folks that are working on those every day. Now, Integris does a lot of things that I don't understand. Coming from a food production facility where we were making egg products and putting them into boxes, this is a different level, but it makes for a lot of good benefits for our employees in terms of career potential and also just the skilled labor that we're looking for. So this slide is just showing some of the major businesses that we're in. I'm going to have us focus on the advanced materials section in the top right. That's the business that the Chaska and Bloomington production facilities work in. And so, really at the end of the day, what we're doing is making the products that move materials used in the semiconductor manufacturing process from one point to another. So some of these things are extremely volatile chemicals. They can be corrosive acids. They can also be materials that we need to maintain the strictest purity qualities ever. So having one, micron of contamination can ruin an entire batch of processors that Intel is creating using our products to help with that process. So I also think it's important to talk about what this company stands for. And we never want to work for a company that's not doing the right thing. And I do really believe in the mission of Integris. So the mission is delivering innovative science-based solutions to help customers in the most advanced industries improve their performance and transform the world. Now, I mentioned that we have a facility in Bloomington, and this advanced materials handling business even extends itself to our current pandemic. So Integris was actually one of the suppliers of the medical grade quality bags that is used in the vaccine manufacturing process of the COVID-19 vaccine through Moderna. So when the vaccine production went from 0 to 120 miles an hour, our facility in Bloomington overnight went from running at 60% capacity to running at over 120% capacity. So we're making those medical bags that Moderna puts the vaccine in and is frozen before it's transported to a facility where it's put in those vials. So I think it's really important to just kind of have that as a base in terms of working for a company that not only is helping our cars be able to be smarter and back into their parking spots the most accurately, but also helping to make sure that we have that vaccine available for everybody around the world, and that we're providing those bags at a high quality for those customers. Going along with a mission comes values. And so I did want to also talk about our PACE values, which is the foundation to how we do business at Integris and how we expect our employees to conduct themselves when they're working here. So people and teamwork, accountability, integrity and trust, creativity and innovation, and a dedication to excellence. These are all 4 values that whether you're joining us as a manufacturing operator with no experience, or you're coming on as the new director of operations for the entire facility, these 4 attributes we expect everyone to demonstrate. Now, depending on what level you come in, we have different levels of showing these things. So obviously as a manufacturing operator, showing respect and dignity would be ensuring that you're listening to your coworkers and that you're coming to work on time and doing your part to help the team succeed. A little bit different when it comes to someone joining us as a mechanical engineer or even as a director of operations, where they're really thinking maybe a bit more holistically about their team, how they can help resolve conflict, how they can de-escalate situations. But I do think it's important for everyone just to know that these PACE values are something that we talk about regularly and routinely with all levels of employee and during our performance review process. We also have a lot more locations than just the 2 that I support, so wanted to make sure that we talk about that. Across the US, you can see on the map all the different sites that we have. Although I'm not responsible for each of these locations, if you know of anyone that's interested in work in any of these cities, definitely feel free to reach out to me. We also are global, so you'll see that we have a presence in EMEA and Asia. And those are both growing businesses and parts of our business for our different divisions. So then just a little bit about our 2 buildings that I support. So our location in Chaska, we have about 300 production employees. Again, we're part of that advanced materials handling division. And I kind of alluded to this, but this is a more kind of summarized way of saying what we do here, but we're really manufacturing products that protect, transport, and deliver critical liquid chemistries from a supplier at a point of use. So again, think about those corrosive chemicals that need to go from a big drum that maybe has 50 gallons and then be dispersed in millimeter measurements to an exact maybe 1,000th of a millimeter amount. So those are the types of things that we're producing here. Over in Bloomington, we're quite a bit smaller. So right now that facility only has 100 production employees. But again, this is one of those businesses that's growing extremely rapidly. So we continue to have openings at both of our plants. And in Bloomington, those openings are a little bit more entry level. We only make that one product that I alluded to before that's used in the COVID-19 vaccine manufacturing process. But that line is running 24/7 and we're installing multiple lines like it to make sure that we can keep up with demand and keep those vaccines rolling out. Want to make sure that we give some context to where our 2 facilities are located. So we have our Bloomington and Chaska locations on this Google Map screenshot here. And then in terms of job opportunities, so we have a lot of different openings. All of our jobs are posted online at integris.com/careers. And I'm going to talk about these jobs kind of in buckets. So our manufacturing operator job requires no experience. We do prefer that someone has at least worked in a manufacturing setting before, but it's not required. Manufacturing operators can expect to be placed on rotating schedules within our departments that are doing things like inspecting product, doing quality tests with our product, potentially a little bit of last mile cleanup or detailing, so maybe removing burrs that are on a product or inspecting it for an overall final quality check. Our warehouse workers is a bit more self-explanatory. We have a large warehouse where we store all of our products and get it ready to move from point A to point B. And so warehouse workers are responsible for kitting products for our production floor. They're responsible for moving pallets from one place to another. They're also responsible for some of our bulk packaging for our larger chemical drums. So using a forklift, a wave, elevated working conditions are all part of our warehouse worker job. Excuse me, then our injection molding setup technician and mold maker. So if anyone's familiar with injection molding, that involves having very large stainless steel or other heavy metal cast, basically shaped boxes that we need to put together. And so a setup technician is responsible for making sure that we get the right mold, that it's put on the right press, and that it's set up to run for whatever period of time is needed. A mold maker is responsible for maintenance, potentially changes to an existing mold, and helping coordinate our schedule of molds across our production facility for a given week. And then a manufacturing engineer is more of a degreed position. And so having working on a process improvement, trying to remove repetitive stress risks and other types of improvements on our production line. So like I say in the slide, we do have over 50 positions between our two sites. We have both permanent and contractor positions. So we use Randstad as our contract provider. And so if people want to maybe test out what it's like to work here, they can definitely go through that avenue. Otherwise, we do have full-time positions that are open on some of our off shifts, and all of those are posted on or at integris.com/careers. A little bit more about the reasons to come work here. So, you know, we do have very competitive starting wages. Depending on the entry-level role, you could be starting between $16 and $18.50 an hour. We also incentivize our off shifts. So our second shift differential is 75 cents an hour, third shift is $1.25, and then our weekend shifts can be $2 for weekend days and $2.50 for weekend evenings. Right now, since we have so many open positions and such high demand from our customers, we just raised our sign-on bonus from $2,000 to $5,000. We also pay out that bonus very quickly. So you'll see that we pay out $3,000 in 30 days and the remainder after 6 months. So we are in desperate need of qualified folks and we're willing to pay for it. We also have extremely good benefits, you know, a 401k program with a match, and an employee stock purchase program where you're eligible to buy stock at a 15% discount from the public rate, and tuition reimbursement to help our employees, you know, go back and get degrees or certifications. We also have a lot of opportunities to grow. So we don't post for a lot of our more senior positions within the manufacturing operator or even our team leads. And so those are internally posted positions. And we always prefer to have someone that understands our business and knows the people to move into those roles and help us grow the teams. And I think it's important, again, to call out those PACE values. You know, whether it was myself and my operations director engaging with Anissa to understand how we could build a better reflection space for our Muslim employees, or even the fact that, you know, we encourage employees to raise any type of concern to myself or their supervisor, you know, through team meetings. Those PACE values are really something that I've seen demonstrated even in the 11 weeks that I've been here. And again, I kind of alluded to this before, but you know, we do have a lot of opportunities for advancement. So whether that's moving into higher paying skill sets within the job that you come in at, if it's moving into a shift or a department lead, or we have a lot of people that maybe come in as a warehouse worker, and then once they see the other positions that we have, want to transition into our quality teams as an operator, or really anything else. So those are all opportunities that are available. So that is what I have for the group, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that folks have. Otherwise, I will leave my contact information, and feel free to reach out to me with questions, or if you're having issues applying for our jobs, I'm more than happy to help make sure those get addressed.
Thank you, Justin. I really appreciate the information that you shared with us, and I hope some of the people that had really expressed their interest in joining your company will be able to follow up and apply and reach out to you. Anybody has questions? If not, you could definitely feel free to reach out to Justin or apply, or even share the information for people that are interested in applying. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming and presenting for us. And finally, I'd like to introduce James Houston and Lacey Glonga. Looks like James will be presenting until Lacey can join him. Yep. James, are you there?
I am. Can you see me okay?
Awesome. Yes, here you are. Great.
All right, very good. Let me find this PowerPoint. Up. Is this the right one? Yes, it is.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, is everything set up for me okay? Because I'm just looking at the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, very good. And then I'll just, Oh, there we go. Slideshow from the beginning. All right. So yeah, thanks for having me, everybody. I'll just give a little bit of a background. I'm an inclusion and diversity consultant with Xcel Energy. I have a couple of kids here at the house, so if you hear any banging, that's just them. My background has come from the nonprofit sector. I see a couple of names that I recognize in the group already. And so I spent about 15 years in working in workforce developments and nonprofits. Time with the state of Minnesota at VRS, Goodwill Easter Seals, and then Achieve Minneapolis as a program manager before I came over here. And so it's just a pleasure to be able to be with everybody today. And Lacey is my counterpart. She's based out of Colorado. And so I'll just kind of go through an overview of the company, and then same thing, if anybody has questions at the end, we can go from there. So yeah, Xcel Energy, we're electric and natural gas, which is the bulk of what we do. 3.6 million electric customers and 2 million gas customers. So like in Minnesota, we are, we act as center point in some other locations. Destination 2050, and so maybe a couple of years ago, we were the first energy company to make this announcement that we're going to be 100% carbon-free electricity by 2050. We'll be at 80% carbon-free by 2030. And the thing that we have going on is that we're not necessarily sure where that extra 20% is going to come from. And so we're hoping that people who are going to school now, students that are in elementary school and high school, are going to be the individuals that help us get to this 100% carbon-free electricity by 2050, because at the moment the technology doesn't exist, but we believe it's going to by the time we get there. Our mission: provide customers safe, clean, reliable energy services they want and value at a good price. Benefits for working at the company: 401k with company match. I think we match up to 4%. So if I contribute 8%, Xcel will match up to 4%. And then we also have a pension plan, which is getting pretty rare these days, but a lot of the work that we do is unionized. And so that's the pension plan is something that we've been able to hold on to. We also have volunteer PTO, meaning if you want to do volunteering in the community, you're not going to have to use your PTO in order to do that. There's a bit of a system in place for it, but if you feel like going out into the community and doing some work, you're not going to have to use your own PTO. We have a tuition reimbursement plan. I want to say it's a $52.50 that we reimburse annually, or 80% of your total cost up to that dollar amount. But it's a reimbursement on the back end. And then pay per performance. High performers do get incentives, and that happens in a couple of different ways. You have incentives for things that impact the bottom line. And so, you can get incentives that are based on, how much you're able to save the company. And then you also have incentives for doing good work in general. So if you do something that your coworkers or your leaders, think is good work, you have the opportunity to earn incentives that way. And so just as an example, the vast majority of the incentives that I've received have come from my coworkers. And so it's not just your boss who can give you some kind of incentive for doing well. It's your teammates, and that's where a lot of it comes from. We have a budget set aside just for stuff like that. And so people can earn, $50. I just got a $15 incentive earlier today. I think up to $250 people can get, and it's all, you redeem it all through a catalog where you can purchase cool stuff. I just got a bunch of Nike gear, so very cool. Why Xcel Energy? Ethical team committed to excellent safety, environmental stewardship. Nearly 50% eligible are to retire in the next 5 to 10 years. I think that's a common situation in a lot of companies like ours. Yes, there's lots of lateral movements, lots of promotions, development and rotational assignments. And so I'll just give you an example. Currently, I'm in what's called a rotational position where I am working on an assignment that'll end at the end of this year with the hope of moving into a permanent role. But for people that are interested in learning more and developing themselves, it's a way to gain experience and learn on the job and get some development with a different hiring leader And if it works out, you know, there's a good chance that you can continue on in that role. But if you were just doing it to learn, you can go back to your original role, and then maybe try another CDA assignment or another development assignment. But the good thing about it is if you work it out on the front end, talking to your hiring leader, you're not putting your original position at risk. So in my case, if this is something that I don't like to do, I'll be able to go back to my original job and keep doing it. Giving back to the community, yep. Our United Way campaign raised $2.85 million from employees and retirees and contractors. Our foundation matched it, and so we got it to $5.2 million. $5.2 million donated to the community. And so just an example, this year, I think we committed $350,000 to learning pods in the city of Minneapolis that were kind of coordinated through local churches in North Minneapolis. We donated about $700,000 to Denver area restaurants to help them stay afloat and create safer spaces for people to be able to congregate and go eat and stuff like that out there. The volunteer PTO just popped up again, and so you get 40 hours of volunteer PTO throughout the year. Again, that's not PTO dollars that you have to use. And then we also have a day of service. It's usually in September, where individuals are able to sign up for different projects that are happening around the Twin Cities. Last year, I went to the Haley Q. Brown Community Center in St. Paul, and we redid all of their playground for the children. So we weeded out their playground, and then they were getting a brand new cold storage. And so we cleaned out the area and broke down an old closet for them so that they get a new cold storage put in there. And that's something that we do every single year. Yeah, and this is pretty common. So types of opportunities. Yes, we usually have about 100 jobs, 150 jobs is pretty typical. We're split between Denver, Minneapolis, and Amarillo, Texas. So the bulk of the positions are always going to be in Minneapolis or Denver. We also have a office in Amarillo. In the Amarillo office, we'll have a lot of customer care. Same with Eau Claire, Wisconsin. But for IT jobs and things like that, most of that is split between Denver and Minneapolis. Yes, and our interns, yes, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering are our two typical internship opportunities in engineering, and business for analytics, financial analysts, things like that. For corporate, yes, IT, cybersecurity, accounting and finance. Consultants for us, consultants are just a hierarchy, if that makes sense. So you're a coordinator, analyst, consultant role. That's what our consultant roles are set up for. Planning and purchasing, that's another section there. For operations, that's most of the work that happens in our plants, our substations. We have a lot of field work with 12,000 employees. I want to say at least 60% of them are out in the field. That's our line workers, that are people that are working at plants, and just people just making sure that our lines are maintained. And so project managers, ops supervisors, operation managers, strategy and performance consultants are another big one, and electric transportation. So we're a big supporter of electric vehicles, obviously. We can help people kind of retrofit their homes and stuff like that to get EV charges. Oh, that's not for me. And so this is just a bit about how we apply for jobs. So you can go to Xcel Energy Careers or jobs@xcelenergy.com. And I recommend using the search by date. You can go by location or keyword, but with a lot of our positions, if a position says it's, you know, production specialist or ops manager, Noble's Wind Farm, it may also be able to be posted in a different section. So if we have an IT solutions position that's in Denver, I would take a look at that position because you may be able to do it in either location. So a lot of times our positions are highlighted for one location, but you could easily do Minneapolis or Denver, if that makes sense. But you can still use keyword for sure, or the location. But I would just say, if you're curious about a role, dig into it, take a look at what location options there are, because a lot of our positions have people able to work in one of several locations for the role. the right fit. And so this may be pretty common, but for us, minimum qualifications are a really big deal. If a position asks for 5 years of, mechanical engineering experience, and you only have 4 years, there's a good chance that you'll be rejected from the applicant pool. And these are just our regulations because we're a regulated monopoly. We can't accept any candidates that don't meet minimums. Now, if you think you're close or anything like that, feel free to reach out to the recruiter. All of our positions have a standard email, recruiting@excelenergy.com. From being on the TA team, I can tell you that if you email that address, it will go to the recruiter that owns the position. And so if you have questions on whether you think you meet the minimum qualifications or not, feel free to reach out to one of the recruiters. I'll put my email address in the chat later. I am always willing to have a conversation with somebody about our jobs, our process, before you go through that application process, because I know once that starts, then the ball's kind of rolling. So like if I can answer questions beforehand to help you prepare to fill out your best application, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll answer whatever questions I can. Yes, tailoring resumes. Yes, you should tailor your resume for the position you're applying for. Like a lot of companies, we get a lot of applicants for our roles. And so if a recruiter has 100 applicants in the pool, you can go a little, after a while, the resumes can look the same. And so make sure you're tailoring it, make sure you're really being thoughtful about the process so that recruiters will really dig into it. If you send a resume in that's just for any old general job and doesn't really address the specific needs of the position, it's easier for you to find your resume getting rejected. Assessments, Edison Electrical Institute. These are assessments for people that are doing more ops roles at plants and things like that. We also have leadership assessments and behavioral assessments for any customer care position, like a customer care associate 2. You'll have to do one of those behavioral assessments. If you're applying for a manager level or a director level position where you're going to be supervising other people, you'll also have to take a leadership assessment. If not, just to give you a heads up, once you get inside the company, we offer twice a year, we offer the opportunity to take a leadership assessment without it being attached to a job. Because once you take it, if you don't pass the assessment, you have to wait 6 months to reapply for a manager level position. And so if you get in, that's something that you can take advantage of where it's not attached to a position, maybe take a little bit of the pressure off, if that makes sense. Here are some of our positions. IT director, and this is a perfect example. This is Minnesota or Colorado. Principal security analyst, same thing. Our service territories, so that's all our service territories: Minnesota, Colorado, Texas, Wisconsin, New Mexico, a chunk of Michigan, and a small portion of South and North Dakota. We have like Western Wisconsin. Our largest service territories are going to be Minnesota and Colorado. IT manager out of Minneapolis. ServiceNow IT engineer, and this is the ServiceNow is more of like an internal facing position. So we use that for like our incentive catalog and how people are ordering supplies and stuff like that. These are all positions that I use to recruit for. And so this is just an example. But again, if you take a look at our website and you have questions about other roles that you think you might be interested in, where the title may not feel familiar to you, shoot me an email, give our recruiters a call. I think it's always a good idea to try to establish a relationship with recruiters because they're the gatekeepers, but it is their job to get good people in the door. And so if you can build that relationship with them and try to, like just get a better idea of what we have going on, and hopefully they can give you an idea of what direction to go and how to make your job search more efficient and effective. Onboarding process, we have phone screening or virtual interviews are conducted. That's all we're doing right now. An offer, recruiters are going to be the ones that give the call to discuss details about the salary, benefits, and the background check process. You have 3 business days to accept an offer. So if we offer you on Friday, you have until Tuesday of the following week to accept. I know that The best thing to do in that process is just make sure that you're communicating with the recruiter and letting them know what's going on. Sometimes hiring leaders want an answer before the recruiter does. And so it's always good to just keep in contact. Pre-employment background screen and background check and drug screen. 3 days to conduct the background check and drug screen after an offer has been accepted. And it takes about 10 business days to get an answer back. With the background check, you know, I used to serve people that have criminal backgrounds when I was with Goodwill. And I would say our background policy is transparent, is the best way to describe it. I think just one example is like, I think you can have like X number of DUIs before it has to go to a review. Our security team, they do lots of background screenings a year, thousands upon thousands of background checks per year. But they are really good at helping people through the process if they have questions, if you're looking for certain types of documents and things like that. Because we deal with nuclear power and stuff like that, I mean, it is a thorough background check, but the process doesn't have to be intimidating. If you have questions about it, feel free to reach out to them. And if you have issues, like if not issues, but if you have things on your background, just making sure that they're aware of them and they know what's on there, because as long as it matches up, you know, then they can at least go through the process. But if things don't match up, it kind of shuts everything down, if that makes sense. Inclusion and diversity. And so we have business resource groups. This is just the general list of all of our groups. You know, as a company and as someone who does this work, you know, like I work for someone who understands it, you know, like I work for someone who gets it. I think as a company, we certainly have work to do. We have 12,000 employees, and I think as an example, like maybe of those 12,000 employees, like I think about 260, 275 of them are African Americans or Black people, and so that's not a very big number. You know, I mean, I don't like to sugarcoat where we are as far as I&D work is. You know, I think the company as a whole could be more diverse, but I think something that I appreciated coming over is that we are a service-minded company. You know, like if you want power and you got to get power in the city of Minneapolis, you know, you're going through us. You know, I mean, that's just the way it is. And so we do a good job of being really service-minded, and the people that are in these BRG groups and the people that are included in our inclusion and diversity team are very committed to building a more inclusive workspace. But we're starting on this journey. I mean, there's no other way for us to put it. There are other places that are ahead of us, but the people who are pushing this work forward, I think, are people who really understand how important it is. And, you know, that's the job, I guess. You know, like we're working to make things better. And we're an energy company, and so we're a bit different than some other places, if that makes sense. Yeah, well, that was the end of the presentation. If anyone has any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask. I haven't been able to look at the chat, and so I'm going to stop presenting here.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't see any questions so far, but I do see late.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, Lacey put our info in there.
Yeah, perfect. If anyone has a question, please feel free to share it in the chat box, and we'll definitely have Justin, James, or Lacey respond to that. And if not, of course, the email address for them to contact is there.
Yeah.
Looks like, yeah, today is more of an informative gathering, which is really great. And it seems we're done even 15 minutes before. But I really appreciate all of you attending, and also, you know, James and Justin and Lacey and Neela and Deputy Commissioner Warfa for presenting. This is a platform we hold once a month, and we share resources, and it's designed to connect community leaders, advocates, members with resources available throughout our state, both public and private. And this month was a Tech Month job, so we're exploring ways to connect job seekers in the pipe-out communities, especially immigrants and refugees, and also, what tech jobs that are out there and available. And I'm really glad, James, that you said, if you have questions or it's always good to know the recruiters, shoot us an email and, ask questions and whatnot. Same goes for Justin. His company, Integris, is offering a bonus. So yeah, take advantage of that. Share that information, please. So I'll definitely give you back some time, but we'll share the agenda for the upcoming platform. But otherwise, thank you so much. Enjoy the weather and have a great day and a great week. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye.